CM Punk. It's been a week or two. So
my favorite subject.
This is what was reported today in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Regarding CM Punk, there's obviously tons of talk regarding him returning, that being to WWE. There have been rumors that it's happening, but those in WWE have only said that no deal is completed, and those close to Punk have told us that it is his intention to return, and the two sides are in talks. One would expect if such a deal is made that Survivor Series weekend in Chicago would be the time to do the surprise return. Now, Sean Ross Sapp at Fightful Select has also reported that WWE higher-ups fully believe that Punk would sign if WWE is interested in bringing him back. But as of 2 weeks ago, there was no indication of talks between the two, although the belief that Punk's side has sent feelers to the company, but nobody on creative or talent have been told anything regarding Punk returning. So it would seem what we're talking about is theoretical at this point, but at least with some foundation of these sides at least having discussions at some point in the near future, if not already. And that just becomes the question of giant star that's on the market in a competitive war. 9 times out of 10, and I would say almost 10 times out of 10, WWE is going to go after that star. Is this the rare exception, or is this just too advantageous of a performer to hold grudges over that you would not bring him back?
At this point, I would think the latter. Look at what they've done right now with Jade Cargill. And I hesitate to compare anybody with CM Punk because Punk is such a unique situation. But I think much of why Jade Cargill is getting the type of treatment that she's getting is because it is a maybe not so subtle, maybe subtle to some, jab at your competition to be able to say, we took a guy from your company and we're going to make them a bigger star than they were over there. Not to say CM Punk is going to, ascend that same sort of like ladder or anything like that, but I truly
is there a perception win if Punk can come in and this does not become a giant mess, and it's assigned to your locker? It's almost like this is a Paul Levesque vote of confidence that
CM Punk was not the problem. It was his management that was the problem. That's the narrative that they want.
That is what you can spin. And if you are someone on the AEW side that's either pro Punk or just neutral, it was just neutral to all of this, and you see that, I'm sure that's something you certainly push and trumpet if you're WWE. It's like, this is no different than in sports when you have a player that cannot get along with management. There's always you always have general managers out there that feel, well, if he comes here, we can get the best out of this person. There's always that belief that they have the magic formula. And I think in this case, it's tough. Like when you are looking at, I've said before, this is not as though this is like deep-rooted issues of Punk and Vince McMahon like you had with Bruno Sammartino, for instance, and Paul Levesque got to be that bridge. Paul Levesque had as much of his issues with Punk and vice versa as Vince did. And this is a test of Paul Levesque. And you can certainly look at a time when, yes, you are in this quote-unquote war, but at the end of the day, your company's on fire at the moment. You don't need anyone. And this is one where Punk going in here, he does not have the leverage that he would have in AEW.
Right. Totally agreed. And I think those are positives that WWE probably sees for themselves. They are the ones who can demand the terms of Punk's re-entrance into this company. They'll have him obviously on a very short leash. And I imagine whatever contract that they're going to offer him will indicate as much. I mean, Punk has leverage on his side too. He just came back from, like, say what you will, an incredible like proof of, I think, his worth, in the industry through his merchandise sales, through his ability, you can argue, to maybe fill the United Center, okay, or to maybe attract a certain audience over to a Saturday for a brand new show. He still comes in with a lot, but the WWE is the playground that that dictates the entire term.
There's only one place you can monetize that supposed worth as well. It's this company.
Yes, exactly.
As much as you look at some, and the idea of impact has been thrown out there, and your immediate reaction is to scoff at that notion. But I would argue that if you were to look at just from a pure standpoint of a guy that would be in a position where, listen, Impact, if they wanted to just unload the purse strings, they have the capital. They bought a television network. So it's like, I am sure Impact is a very small budget in the overall Anthem scheme of things, but not an insignificant one. Like that's a ton they have put into this brand. And if you're looking at, listen, we're doing 100,000 viewers. We have this Access TV network. What can we do to get to the next level? This is the kind of performer that I think you would look at. Like if ever there was a time that we're going to break the bank for, it's this guy who comes in, and Punk would have an unbelievable amount of autonomy in a company like Impact. Like he would have unchecked power in an Impact where if he wants his vision sought out, like he would have enormous power. But it's quite a different level of professional wrestling that you're going to.
I imagine there's obviously going to be interest from Impact. I imagine they might even go as far as to make him an offer. But if I'm CM Punk, I don't know if he necessarily has such a big desire to run a professional wrestling brand in his vision, as much as he, I think, just wants to be respected as like a big name. And in Impact,
he would be treated as like the star of all stars.
But you're talking about a significantly smaller pond in Impact Wrestling. And yes, of course, he'll be the biggest name there, but his voice in the industry itself will be that much smaller. And I don't think for a second that would be his first choice.
I don't think it would be his first choice, but I just look at like certainly like WWE, like let's forget just the fallout and the bad blood and stuff. Like here was somebody that if you've listened closely to him, like the way he described it, like I was sick while I was there. Like this is somebody that sounds like he had a significant like mental issues coming out of his experience in WWE. This is someone who said he was going to die continuing this, whether you believe that or not. It's more than just it's grudges to Barry as well. This is a company that I don't know if it's the best thing for him either in all of this.
So a lot has changed since then. A lot has changed, I think, with the WWE internally and their schedule and their offers for talent on the level of a CM Punk to work part-time. A lot has changed with CM Punk, and I don't think he's necessarily the same person he was then too. I mean, you can argue if he's a more sensitive person now than maybe he was in the past, who knows? But I think they're very different companies right now. And especially now with, his only option really being the WWE, if he wants to continue making that level of money as a pro wrestler. I think he's willing to put a lot of those differences aside. And I think the company will probably, understand the other issue, of course, is a lot of the people that he'll be working with that might not necessarily either want him there or have had past grudges with him. That to me might be a bit more of a trickier hurdle. How do you see both the WWE and CM Punk navigating some of those potentially very politically tricky waters?
I think that in terms of the talent there, I think ultimately it's